boy, do I have some news for you guys. So, there is a thing in Final Fantasy VII called Playground Skip. This is for categories that don't do guard skip. If you don't do guard skip and then you go through, like, the church and you meet Eris and then you have to sneak past her, where you have to walk by her room to sneak past her, and then when you go down here, she is here waiting for you. This is for this part of the game. If you don't already know, there is actually a skip where you can sneak by the back of her, but it's very weird and tricky how you pull it off. How people do it is we use the arrows, run down until we bonk, run left until we bonk, then I hold L and tap up until I'm in this position. There's a couple different positions that work, and now at this point, it's actually just a 50-50 chance. You gotta hold run, L, and run up, and that time, I didn't get it. This time using a save state, however, let's show this. So if we try right now, that time I did get it, doing the exact same thing. Alright, whoa, we're on console now. So the whole deal with this skip, the whole reason that you do this skip is because you slip past her right there, and the big benefit of it is actually not just, it only takes a second for her to enter your party right there. But the deal is, if you get back here and she's not in your party, then the minute-long cutscene right here, where, she climbs up on top of the slide and then Cloud goes up there and they talk about stuff, right? That minute-long cutscene doesn't trigger if she's not in the party. And so you just run straight on through and you save a minute right there. So that's the skip. And then right here, you line right back up with where an any % run would be right after they do guard skip. It converges right here. And there you have it. Let's try it again. That time I got it. Doing the same exact thing every time. That time I didn't. It's just a 50-50. So what's going on? The deal is that Eris has a script that is monitoring 2 triangles right here on the walk mesh. But the thing is, she only checks every other frame for some reason. And so what this particular setup and movement achieves is that we are only spending 1 frame on that triangle as we run past. That's as little time as we can spend on it. And so we're hoping that 1 frame where we're on the triangle is the one where she's not checking. And we can see the checking of every other frame actually visible on this particular memory address right here. This memory address has to do with the state of her script right now, and on every other frame it's 3, every other frame it's 4, and on frames where it's 3, I believe, well, let's find out. On ones where it's 3, that's where if we were to press up on the following frame, technically, then we would make it through. So it's just a straight up 50-50. The thing is, there's no visual element anywhere or timing element, really, that would get this to be consistent. Because of how it works, it's just a 50-50. And because of that, it's a very controversial skip. So it's been a question for a long time, how do we get this skip consistent? Well, I looked into it at one point, and I came to the same conclusion that a lot of people came to, which is that, what if we used the blinking of the arrow animation here? If we slow it down, we can see that, on this particular case, when it blinks up, it's on the not correct for you to press up. And that means that every cycle of this animation, that's going to be consistent. If we look at it again, boom, the time where the line goes up, that it's on 4. Here, when it goes up, it's on 4. It's the same every time. And so my idea, which other people before me had the same idea when I brought this to the community, other people had the same idea before, where it's you attempt to menu, and then basically if you see that you attempt to menu right on the glow up, and if it's the good frame, then you would just exit and go. But if it were let's just say it were the bad frame, like right here. Let's say you saw that it was the bad frame, then you could do, and I'll show you right here. Like this is the bad frame, so if I were to exit and go, we would get caught. However, if I were to do one menu buffer and then go, we wouldn't, right? So if we were able to identify, maybe using the blink of the red arrow, and know whether we need to menu buffer once or not, that would theoretically work. Problem is, and this is where everyone else who had this same idea got stuck, problem is, it's also inconsistent whether or not the glow up correlates to the good frames or the bad frames. Oh no, the problem is the animation carries over between different rooms and shit. And so like if you when you turn it on, if you like go into this room, you turn the arrows on for the setup, it's not going to be consistently lined up with the good or the bad frames. And then even if you turn the arrows on before you go in here, it's the same thing. It's not going to be consistent, unfortunately. So here's where it comes in, and the solution to this problem is actually so simple that everybody who thought of using the red arrows before me is going to be kicking themselves, because here's the deal. So I found the value in memory that controls the arrow animation, and check this out, it only goes when the arrows are on. If you turn the arrows off, it stops. Apologies, I had the select button mapped incorrectly before. That means that if you don't use the arrows all the way until you get to this spot of the game, then they'll actually still just be 0. And that also means that then if you enter this room, and the only change, the thing that needs to be done in order for this to work is, as long as this value is 0 because you haven't used the arrows yet, then you run into this room and just start buffering select. And buffering select will always enable the arrows and start the counting on a consistent frame relative to Eris's script starting as the field loads. And so the sync between the animation of the arrows and the on-off frames of Eris checking is now consistent. It actually is a reliable visual indicator now. But the reliability has some complication to it. Now, here's the thing, it actually gets even better. This arrow's address actually also resets every time that you get into a random battle or after you soft reset and stuff like that. So you don't even have to avoid using the arrows for the entire game until this point for this to work. You just have to turn them off before the most recent battle. And so if we run straight down here and then run straight left, get into position with this shown, what we come up with is, what we'll find is that every single time that we get to the glow up right there, boom, there, this is, in my opinion, this is the most visually recognizable frame of the animation here. You'll see that that it's on 4, and if we go around again, it's on 4. And to show that this is consistent, if we wait a undetermined amount of time, buffer select as we go in, come on over here. We don't even have to get into position. We can just now, oh, hang on, I got to get it stopped in the right spot. There you go. We can see that it's 4. And so, one more time, just buffer select as we go in. Come on over here. I didn't really stop it at a good spot there. We can see that it's 4 on this consistently. Here's the problem, though. Here's the problem with the idea of... My whole idea here is that we try to menu on the switch from the last frame of the arrow being dark to the first frame of the top strip being lit up. And that is our visual indicator of whether we hit it on the early or the on frame. You know what I mean? And so the idea is that when you menu, if you see this frame or whether you see this frame as the screen fades out, you know whether you are on either the frame where you just exit the menu and go, or exit or do one menu buffer and then exit and go. The problem, though, is that each frame of arrow animation lasts for 4 frames at 30 FPS. And so that means that actually, if you see this frame, you have to time it right within a 2-frame window for this to actually be reliable information. If your timing is off, then it's lying to you. So I made a visual here. So here's the deal. Is the last frame of this, the last frame of this being the visual, and the first frame of this being the visual is what you're aiming for. If you see, if on your menu, if you time it correctly and on your menu you see the strip, then you just go. But if you see it still dark, do one menu buffer and go. But here's the problem, is that this frame, and this frame all look the same as this. This frame, this frame all look the same as this. So you have to trust yourself. You have to trust yourself that you hit the button at the right timing where you are viewing this window and not outside of it. If you're outside of it, it lies to you. There is one more piece of complication as well as far as this goes. Not only do you have to time in this 2-frame window, but it's like ever so slightly more complicated in a really dumb way. So let me show you something, and this is actually really similar to reading visual cues with elevator manip. Something similar happens here, which is, let's pause the emulator here, and I'm going to go forward a few frames. And we're gonna count frames here. So every one of these different animation frames lasts for 4 in-game frames. And so at 30 FPS, that is. So let's count those. So we can see there's the change. And so now, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4 frames. And now we expect to see the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4 frames of it. And now we expect to see the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now we got to take a save state, and I got to show you something stupid. If you go 1, 2, 3, okay, we're on the 3rd frame of animation. That means if I hold triangle and advance the frame, you would expect it to advance the frame on the final frame of this being dark, and so the arrow should be dark as the menu comes up, right? However, it's not. Did you see that? So let's try that again. Frame 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a 4th dark frame, frame 1. However, if we just go 1, 2, 3, and now we're menuing on the 4th frame, you see the strip. When you menu, for some reason, it actually thrusts the arrow animation forward 1 frame. And so what that means is you're not actually aiming for this right here to see if you're early or late. You're actually aiming right here, which is the 1 frame earlier, because whether you were here or here, it's gonna thrust you forward into the actual window that you're looking at. So again, I can't stress this enough. You are aiming for this right here. The separation between those 2 frames is what you're aiming for. And if you properly menued in one of these 2 frames, then what you're actually going to see is one of these 2 frames, which then tells you either you're 1 early, so do a menu buffer and go, or you're right on, so just go. All right. Well, I just thought I was recording, doing the skip a bunch of times on the on console, because you can't really do it on emulator. You got to do it on console because the timing is so tight. However, I guess I wasn't recording, so let's do it again. So here we are on hardware. Luckily, I mentioned that soft resetting actually resets your red arrows. And so all you need to practice this is a save file in front of Eris's house, just after you snuck past her, just after you walked past her to sneak by her. Just have a save file here, and you can practice it to your heart's content. So just buffer select coming into this room, and let's go. All right. So we saw the strip on top, so that means, just go. And then soft reset, and you can do it again. Okay, so let's pop in here for another one. Yep. All right, so I did not see the strip on top that time, so I'm going to do 1 menu buffer and then go. And there you have it. So that's both versions of it done, which is like, oh yeah, big whoop. You can get lucky twice. So let's show another one here. But I'm glad I showed both versions of it, where you see the top or you don't see the top, 1 menu buffer or just go. All right. Do 1 menu buffer. And okay, there you have it. So, the timing is very particular because of the way that it's like I'm watching the glow-ups and then having to intentionally menu a frame early. It's very weird. But it is consistent, and with enough practice, I think the success rate on this can be quite high. But there you have it. I think it's pretty crazy that the red arrow strat has been an idea for a long time, and then it turns out that the only adjustment that needed to be made to the strategy in order to get it to work is you just have to not use the arrows before this part, or just don't use them, have them turned off before the most recent battle also works, and then buffer that select press into that screen so that it turns them on and starts at 0 at a consistent time in relation to Eris's script starting on the field. Boom, they're synced up the same way every time. So, there you go.